Hello, my love. Welcome to another episode of Blisstopia podcast. I am your host, Mercedes Castellani, and I am so happy to be recording this episode today. Today, we're going to talk about a different way of growing spiritually. When you want to grow, you want to expand your horizons. There's many things you can do. You can meditate, you can do yoga, you can spend time in nature, you can do different types of mindfulness practices, you can do different types of therapies like dancing therapy, you can do Akashic records, constellations, so many things you can do when you want to grow spiritually. And today I want to talk about one of those ways to grow spiritually, which is to travel. Because I find that when we travel, we can really grow, expand our horizons, spend time with ourselves, really get to know ourselves. So today I'm going to share the three trips that fundamentally changed my life and why they changed my life. They have been so important for my soul. So I really want to share these three trips that have really changed the trajectory of my life and have really made me grow spiritually, which is the most important. So, the first trip that I want to share with you was my trip into the US. When I was 16, I did an exchange in Sherman, Texas. Shout out to any people who might be listening from the States. And I was there for a month. I did an exchange in high school. And this trip was absolutely crucial in my life. So let me give you some context. I was born in Argentina, which is, a Catholic country. And I come from an area which is the northwest of Argentina, which is a very conservative area of the country. So growing up, I saw zero diversity. When I mean zero, it's zero. In my city, everybody was white, everybody was Catholic, everybody was medium to high class, and everybody was speaking Spanish. I was not presented to anything that would be different from that. Different races, different religions, different languages, different like upbringings. It was very mm, boring, I would say, nowadays. So when I was 16, I had been studying English for many years, for 8 years to be precise. And at the end of this program, this 8 year program, we had a trip to the US. So I went to Sherman, Texas for 1 month. I was living in a foster family who were absolutely amazing. And I was going to the American high school every day, interacting with all of the, people that we tend to see on TV, the cheerleaders and the football players and everybody, all the characters that I would always see on TV, like they were there. And as I said, growing up, I was not presented. I didn't have an upbringing where there was a lot of diversity because that's just how it was in the city where I was born and where I lived up until my 18 years old. But even though I grew up in that environment, my father, who has now passed away, once said a very wise phrase to me that I keep up until today in my life. And I can't remember the exact situation or the context in which he used this phrase, but I remember we were saying something about different religions. And mind you, I had only been around Catholic people pretty much all of my life up until 18 years. I had one very good friend who was a Jew, but that was pretty much it. It was just Catholic people and this one Jew friend that I had. And I don't know why we were talking about religion. Can't really remember the situation, but my father said this phrase. They are not better or worse than us. They are just different. And imagine if you have this maybe 8-year-old little girl who hears this phrase from her father. People from different religions, in this case, they're not better than you or worse than you. It's just different. It's the same, it has exactly the same value. It's just different. And I am so grateful that my father educated me in this way and installed this belief in myself. Because I wouldn't be the person that I am today, and I wouldn't have the values that I have today around diversity if my father wouldn't have said this. So I am very grateful for that. So this was my context, right? This is how I grew up. And then I had, for the first time, the opportunity to go to another country without my parents on a trip, just with a bunch of classmates from my English courses and a teacher. I was living with an American family, living an American high school life. And this was the first time that I was in contact with people who were different from me. Everybody was speaking English. Some people were speaking Spanish because there was a Latino community. There were different economic classes. Some people were very, very wealthy. Some people weren't wealthy at all. Some people were in the middle. So it was very different. There were people with different skin colors, which I had never seen in my life. There were people with different religions. And I remember that I was just fascinated with it. Fascinated. I really wanted to spend time with different people who were speaking different languages, who had different religions, who had different skin colors that I had never seen. I remember there was this guy, I remember up until today, because his color was so beautiful and I had never seen a color like that, and I have never seen ever a person who has that color again. His father, I think, was African and his mom was English, and he had this gray color in his, literally gray color in his skin, and these beautiful green eyes. And I was just so fascinated by it, so fascinated by all of this difference, all of these stimuli for me, all of these people that I wanted to spend time with and that I wanted to learn from. So this is why I deeply believe, and I think this experience, really shaped me into believing that we not only have to tolerate diversity, but we need to love diversity. I am deeply convinced of this. I'm deeply convinced that diversity makes things way more interesting. If we're all exactly the same, the same race and the same, we speak the same language and we have the same religion and we belong to the same class. So we are all exactly the same. There's no diversity. There's no difference. And how can you have an interesting debate if everybody thinks exactly the same way? So I think this is what I really, really learned in this trip. I learned to, mind you, I didn't have prejudice. I didn't have stereotypes when I went because I was not educated in that way. I just never had the contact with people who were different from me and my family. So in this trip, it was really amazing because I was in contact with diversity and I loved it. And I love how every time we travel, we break stereotypes and we break prejudice. And there's this phrase from Mark Twain that says, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And many of our people need it sorely on those accounts. So, as Mark Twain said, it is so important to travel, to break prejudice, to open our minds just by being in contact with other people. There is this program in the Middle East because, as you know, there are so many conflicts and so many stereotypes and prejudice also between Israel and Palestine. So now there is a war happening, but also that war is coming from years and years of conflict and stereotypes and prejudice. So there is this program where before the war, they were taking some children from Israel into Palestine so that they would meet children in Palestine. And they would bring children from Palestine to Israel so that they would meet some other children that were Jews. So I think this is just so beautiful because that is the way to break stereotypes and to break prejudice. Because otherwise, what happens? These children grow up in a country, they hear horrible things about people on the other side of the border, and then they really imagine and they're convinced that these people are horrible. So, yes, there is a war now, which is making thousands of lives extremely difficult, which is alienating thousands of lives day after day. But my hope is that once this war is going to be over, if this program can be put back in place, then children will be able to break the prejudice. Because I am deeply convinced that on both sides of any frontier, there are just human beings. Human beings who want to be loved, who want to love, who want to grow, who want to be healthy, who want to be safe, who want their families and their friends to be healthy and safe. And we all deserve the same thing, whether we are on one side of the frontier or the other. We are exactly the same thing. So this is so important for everyone. Of course, within our possibilities to travel as much as possible so that we can really break away from stereotypes and prejudice. And again, I know this is not absolutely possible for everyone, so I do recognize my privilege in doing this trip. But as much as possible, I really invite people to travel because it really breaks the stereotypes and the prejudice. And I think without this trip, I wouldn't be the open-minded person that I am when it comes to other cultures and other religions and other races. So I wouldn't be the person that I am today. And I wouldn't have this global way of seeing things. I don't think in terms of nations. I really don't believe in nations, actually. I do see all of us together in the same neighborhood that is called planet Earth. We're all in this together. We're all exactly the same. And I wouldn't have this awareness and this global point of view if it wasn't for this trip. And I think also, on a more fun note, I don't think I would have the level of English that I have, if it wasn't for this trip. Because on this trip, it really was the moment when I started, I was absolutely immersed in a context that would only speak English to me. And I just had to speak English. So this trip in the US, the first trip that I want to share with you, really gave me the love, the fascination for diversity. I really, really love diversity. And that is why it is such an important pillar also in the values that we have in Blisstopia. The second trip that I want to share with you is a trip to Thailand that I did. This trip had a very different nature. So this trip, I did it when I was 27 years old. So 11 years after the first one. I had just broken up a 4-year relationship. So as you can imagine, my inner world was crumbling down. I was devastated, putting up all of the pieces together. And even though I was the one who decided to leave that relationship, it was very difficult for me. It was horrible. I had built a whole life with this person, and I had to break break that life apart and rebuild myself. So I did this trip on my own. First, I had the idea to do this trip while I was in the relationship. Then at that point, we discussed, okay, maybe we're going to do this trip together. And then when we saw that our relationship was starting to fall apart, we decided that I would do this trip on my own. So I did this trip as a solo trip. It was just me and my backpack that I very much love up until today because we have shared so many amazing moments. And this trip was so important because, as I said, I think I was in a very, very vulnerable place. I had just broken up. I was really putting all of the pieces back together again. And this is the trip when I really got into meditation, Buddhism, spirituality. I was in Thailand for 1 month and I had a lot of time on my own. Of course, I was meeting people, I was talking to people, but I really had a lot of time on my own, which was really good. And I had a lot of time to reflect, to listen to podcasts, to grow spiritually, to really listen to myself. What happened in this relationship? What can I learn from this relationship? What can I learn about myself? What do I need to change in myself? All of these different things that I needed to reflect upon. During this trip, there was this program which is called monk chat, which basically there are monks who sit on one specific temple and on specific days of the week. And actually what they want to do is to open up Buddhism to other people. So you can sit there and you can ask as many questions as you want about Buddhism. So that's what I did. I went to a temple, I seated with monks, and I started asking so many questions, learning from them, discussing with them, and really, really getting into Buddhism. Then also during this trip, I went on a silent retreat for 3 days, which I absolutely loved because it was all about mindfulness and meditation. We couldn't speak. So we had to be 100% present every time during the day. If we wanted to communicate with someone, we could only use like our eyes, a smile, posture. That was it. And I really loved this experience. It was new, it was different, but it really allowed me to tap into a sense of peace that I had never, ever felt before. I had been meditating for 1 year at that point, but doing this retreat for 3 days in a much more intense manner really allowed me to feel a sense of peace that I had never felt before. And I loved it. I loved it. I was so happy and content, and I found a sense of relief. I had been suffering so much, with this breakup and the job that I didn't enjoy back then, and this relationship where I really loved this person, but I couldn't see any future with this person. So, thanks to meditation, I really found a sense of relief. I don't need to be suffering. Actually, happiness is inside of me. Peace is inside of me. I can just tap into these things. This belongs to me. It's inside of me. And this is why I am so excited and I'm always talking about meditation because it's really what worked for me. And I am convinced of the power that this has. And I've seen it do wonders as well with my clients. So without this trip, I wouldn't have discovered meditation in such depth, and I wouldn't be teaching meditation. I wouldn't have discovered spirituality. I wouldn't be the person that I am today. I probably wouldn't have created Blisstopia, to be honest, because then maybe spirituality wouldn't be such a big thing in my life. So Thailand was really about being on my own and discovering spirituality. I'm finding spiritual relief from, the human experience and just tapping into something much bigger, much faster. When your problem, a breakup or this job that you don't like, it's still there, but it's not that important anymore. It's still there, but there's something way bigger than a little bit of pain. And then the third trip that I want to share with you is a trip to Bali that I did last year. So when I was 32, in April 2023, I went to Bali for the first time and definitely not the last time. So this trip was such a manifestation for me because I had this trip in my heart and in my mind for at least 10 years, I would say, since I saw Eat, Pray, Love, which was out in 2010. I saw that movie and I was like, oh my God, that place is just absolute paradise. I really need to go there. That's where she finds spirituality. That's where she finds the love of her life. That's where she really finds this sense of bliss, this sense of being relaxed, being a woman, being beautiful. So Bali represented all of those things for me. It represented this green, lush paradise, being in contact with spirituality, being with the love of your life, being feminine, being free, being carefree and relaxed. So I kept that image of Bali for at least 10 years. So then the opportunity came to go to Bali, and I decided to go to Bali again for 1 month. All my big trips are 1 month. Thank God, living in Europe and having lots of holidays. That was before when I was in the corporate world. Now I can decide to do that kind of thing whenever I want and whenever it fits my own work schedule. So I was there for 1 month, and this trip had two parts. So first I went on my own, again, with the same backpack. And then Fabrice, my partner, joined me for the second part of the trip. So during the first part of the trip, I went on a retreat, which was a retreat for women, and it was all around yoga, personal development, and also some activities around the Balinese culture. So that was very interesting. We got to discover some really interesting things about the Balinese culture, the food. We had a ritual a blessing ritual next to the river. We went to visit a house where they were, cooking for us and really sharing their culture with us. We learned how they do, for example, coconut oil and coconut milk and coconut water. So this trip was really important because while I was in the retreat, I was so excited about, Blisstopia and what was coming and what I was going to create and my clients and programs and this and that. And mind you, I was in a retreat and I was working. That, first of all, should be forbidden. But it really didn't feel like working because I was so motivated, so uplifted, so happy by what I was doing, what I was creating, that it didn't feel like work at all. I mean, when you're in a retreat and you have some free time, you are invited to do whatever your soul wants to do. You can read, you can be by the pool, you can maybe listen to a podcast, you can journal, you can just walk on nature. My soul was on fire. My soul just wanted to create. So if we had 2 hours, for example, of free time, I would just go by the pool, grab my journal, and start writing things about Blisstopia. Okay, I'm going to launch this program, and this is going to be the pricing, and this is going to be the target, and this is how I'm going to do it. And I was just so happy and so excited. And I was just convinced that this was, the next move for me. So even actually during the retreat, I had the download to create the meditation challenge. I was meditating in Bali one day and I just received these downloads. Download is when you have like a very strong insight, a very strong message, and it feels like it's coming from the universe. It's not coming from you, it's coming from the universe. So I got this download about the meditation challenge, how people were going to feel doing this challenge, how I was going to structure more or less. I saw the colors of the program, and you know that the program is all about sky, a background with the sky, and then all of the typography, it's black. So I had received these images during my meditation in Bali. So this trip was so important in the sense that I was really starting to be in the creator mode, because for many years in my spiritual path I had been receiving wisdom, receiving support, receiving love, receiving many things. And I think in Bali things started to shift. I was the one that could be on the creator side and on the giver side from a spiritual point of view. And then something really interesting happened, because during the retreat with different women from all over the world, we were having super interesting conversations during our lunch breaks or even by the pool when we had like some free time. And I was talking to, with all of these women, and we would talk and talk, and I would just start like channeling wisdom and start, when they were open to some guidance, to some advice, I would start sharing, maybe a different point of view, maybe some feedback on the things that they were saying, some advice if possible and if applicable. And I could see that this was really helping these women heal. Some people had like big traumas, some people had difficult situations, and I could really see that my presence and the way I was listening to them and the wisdom that I was sharing with them was really helping them, And then at one point during the retreat, I realized I think I'm ready to be on the teacher side. I think I'm ready to be on the other side. As I said, I had been receiving so much for so many years. And on the retreat, I felt I'm ready to be on the other side, on the side that is teaching, on the side that is creating. And I came to this realization. I'm ready. I have so much wisdom to share with other women, and I'm ready. I'm ready to step into my spiritual leadership and lead other women in their spiritual journey. So without this trip, I wouldn't have created my own retreat. As you know, I created my own retreat, which took place in March 2024. We're going to do another one in November 2024. So if you want to join us, the link is in the show notes. I wouldn't have created the meditation challenge because I had the download during Bali. And yeah, and I think my business would have developed anyways, but maybe it would have taken a different form. I think I was so motivated and so ready for Blisstopia to be born that it would have happened anyways, but just maybe with different programs. Maybe we wouldn't have the She Thrives retreat and the meditation challenge. We would have some other programs that could have been born in different ways. So yeah, this trip was really, really nice. And it was exactly 1 year ago in April 2023. So this is really, really beautiful, and I really wanted to share these experiences with you. So my take on all of this, and again, what can you take from all of this? My take on this is, if you have the possibility, and I do understand it is a privilege, but if you do have the possibility, travel alone. A trip with your partner, a trip with friends, a trip, whatever, with your family, it's going to be super nice, of course. But when you travel alone, there is so much room for your growth, so much room for, reflection, so much room to learn about yourself. And if you can travel alone and join a retreat, it's even better, because of course you're going to spend time on your own and you're going to grow and you're going to heal. So I really, really recommend traveling on your own. And if you can join a retreat, even better. I think when you travel alone, you put your life in perspective. It's like you leave your life for a couple of weeks, for a couple of days, and you look at it from a different perspective, and you realize which are the things that you appreciate and you're super grateful for. So when you go back, you are very mindful and present when those things are around you. And then you also see the things that need to change, the things that worry you, the things that don't truly fulfill you. And then you know that when you come back home, you need to make some changes in your life. Also, when you travel, you spend time with your favorite person. And I hope that your favorite person is you. So you spend time with yourself and you get to know yourself in a much, much deeper way. How are you feeling? What do you need? What can I do to make you happier? All of the things that, sometimes you do with a best friend, with a partner. Why not do all of those questions yourself, and to really make sure that you are making yourself happy? And then I think the last thing that it's important when we travel is that we are able to turn down the volume of our lives and we turn up the volume of our intuition. So in our lives, there's so much noise. We're usually like running around and achieving things and this and that. So basically, when you travel, you just stop everything, stop all the noise, stop the hurry, and you are able to listen to your intuition. So that when you come back into your life, okay, this thing, something's off. I really need to make a change here. This is weird. Or this feels right. I'm going to make a move in that direction. This feels right. This is for me. So it is really important, really, really important to spend time on your own, to grow and to develop your relationship with yourself. So if you want to travel on your own, you're like, you know what, me too. I'm just going to go away and enjoy time on my own. I would love to invite you to join us in the She Thrives retreat, which is going to take place in November 17th to 21st, 2024. This is going to be an amazing trip with so many women from all over the world who are meeting in Mallorca to grow, to learn from a spiritual point of view, from a emotional point of view, from a physical point of view, from a financial point of view. So if you're ready for a beautiful trip like this, you're ready to meet amazing women, create an amazing community that you will still have with you when you go back home, I would love to see you in the She Thrives retreat in November. So you will have the link in the show notes. All you need to do is just follow the link, book your spot, and I will see you there in November and hug you in person. So I will see you on the next episode. And in the meantime, in Blisstopia we trust.